Picture this: election night in Texas. The air is thick with that special brand of political anxiety only a super tight race can brew. Maps are glowing red and blue on every screen. Pundits are sweating through their makeup, and the whole country is holding its breath, waiting for Dallas County to finally report its votes. It's the domino that decides everything, but the clock keeps ticking. 10 p.m., midnight, 2 in the morning, nothing, nada. Just a glaring, suspicious void where the biggest Democratic stronghold in Texas should be. And in the middle of this chaos, striding into a scrum of reporters with the energy of someone who just chugged 3 espressos, is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She doesn't look tired. She looks furious. She gets right to the point, her voice cutting through the buzz of the room. Y'all seeing this? This isn't an accident. This is a calculated, deliberate sabotage. Republicans, she claims, have been actively working to undermine the election process in Dallas County from the inside. It's not a glitch, it's a gaslight. She lays it out like a prosecutor: unexplained delays, mysterious technical issues that only seem to hit certain areas, a stalling of the count that benefits one side and one side only. This is the playbook, she says, her tone dripping with a sarcasm so sharp you could cut glass with it. When they can't win at the ballot box, they try to break the ballot box. Dallas is being slow-rolled, and everyone watching at home knows exactly why. As she speaks, the online algorithms are already feasting. Dallas delay starts trending. Clips of her fiery commentary get chopped up, shared, and reshared. The SEO-optimized pacing of her accusations is perfect. Short, punchy sentences followed by a pause for effect. She's not just reporting news, she's creating the narrative in real time, painting a picture of a GOP operation so desperate they're willing to hold an entire county hostage on national television. The tension is masterfully built minute by minute. What are they hiding? What's in those ballots? The longer Dallas stays dark, the more her theory seems less like a claim and more like the only logical explanation. Then, just as she's wrapping up, delivering her final scathing remark about democracy dying not in darkness, but in deliberate bureaucratic delay, she turns to leave the podium. The reporters are shouting follow-ups, but she's done. The screen splits, showing her exit on one side and the official election results dashboard on the other. For a second, it's just more waiting, more of that agonizing, silent tally that hasn't budged for hours. The cliffhanger moment stretches out, thin and tight, and that's when it happens. And that's when it happens. The Dallas County results dashboard, that stubborn, silent screen that's been frozen for what felt like an eternity, finally flickers. A single, tiny update, then another, and then it's not a trickle, it's a flood. The numbers start rolling in, and the entire narrative Crockett just spent the last hour constructing on that national stage begins to unravel in real time. This is the deep dive. This is where the political theater meets the hard, cold, unforgiving math. The lead, which Crockett had framed as being artificially suppressed, didn't vanish. It just changed. It narrowed dramatically. With every refresh of the page, her opponent's numbers climbed in Dallas County, not by a little, but by tens of thousands. And here's where Crockett's sabotage claims start to look less like a prophecy and more like a strategic gaslighting operation. Her team's central argument was the delay itself, the hostage situation. But the emerging data tells a different story. The delay wasn't a Republican plot. It was a perfect storm of a record-high turnout, a massive number of mail-in ballots that require signature verification, and, let's be honest, a county election infrastructure that was overwhelmed. The narrowing lead is the real story. It flips the script. For hours, the Crockett campaign controlled the narrative with a masterclass in victimhood. They pointed at the static map and screamed foul play. But now, with numbers filling in, the question isn't what are they hiding, it's what was she hiding? The data suggests her support in key areas was softer than projected. The emerging votes aren't skewing the election. They're correcting the initial incomplete picture. It turns out you can't hold math hostage. Social media, which was a wildfire of conspiracy theories just an hour ago, is now experiencing the first cracks. The Dallas lockdown hashtag is getting diluted with tweets from data nerds and local reporters, posting the official update logs, the precinct-by-precinct breakdowns, showing a perfectly normal, if slow, count. The energy shifts from outrage to confusion, then to a dawning, awkward realization. The most damning posts start to surface, side-by-side comparisons of Crockett's primetime speech claiming total dominance in Dallas, and the live updating county website showing her lead evaporating. The caption is usually just a single sarcastic emoji. The narrative of a grand Republican interference scheme begins to crack, not with a bang, but under the sheer, boring, undeniable weight of incoming votes. But this is politics. No campaign lets go of a good storyline that easily. As the data solidifies, Crockett's surrogates pivot in real time on cable news. And then, the turn. The moment the data went from a slow drip to a fire hose and the entire narrative Crockett's campaign had built over the last frantic hours began to collapse in real time. It wasn't a conspiracy that undid her. It was math. Cold, hard, precinct-level math flooding into the county clerk's server. The pivot from her surrogates was a masterclass in political gaslighting. 1 minute, they're on every cable box screaming about stolen votes and broken systems. The next, with the updated tallies blinking plainly on the screen right next to their talking head box, the tone shifts. It's no longer about theft. Now it's about the incredible, against-all-odds surge of Republican turnout they always knew was coming. But the internet wasn't having it. This is the POV of every political junkie hitting refresh. You're watching a campaign try to walk back a concession speech that hasn't officially been given. The side-by-side clips are absolutely brutal. On the left screen, Crockett, fist in the air, declaring an insurmountable lead in Dallas County. On the right, a time-stamped live stream of the election website, her percentage ticking down, 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 as the very votes she said were counted finally got counted. Then came the county-by-county breakdowns from the data sleuths. This wasn't about some shadowy central tabulator. This was about geography. Crockett's early lead was built on votes from the urban core, the deep blue precincts that report fast because they use centralized counting facilities. The votes that were still chugging in, the votes that were always going to chug in, were from the sprawling suburban precincts and the red-leaning rural outskirts. The places where voting is done on paper ballots that take longer to drive back to the county seat and process. The places where, it turns out, her Republican opponent was running up the score. Her campaign either didn't know this basic structural reality of their own district's election administration, or they chose to ignore it for a primetime momentum play. Either option was catastrophic. The real-time analytics gurus, the ones with the multi-monitor setups and the custom vote tracking software, saw it first. Their feeds, usually a cacophony of numbers, went eerily silent, then erupted. Not with conspiracy, but with a single stark conclusion. Crockett had called the game at halftime. She'd given a victory speech while the other team's best offensive players were still suiting up. And now those players were on the field. The numbers told the story her speech didn't. Her 12-point lead at 9 p.m. whittled to 8, then to 5.2. Then, as a massive dump of votes from the conservative-leaning northern suburbs of the county landed, it cratered to a 1.8-point margin. And so, the clock struck midnight, and the political Cinderella story turned into a pumpkin. The final numbers weren't just a correction. They were a full-blown reality check. Crockett's 12-point fantasy lead evaporated into a razor-thin, sweat-inducing margin of just 1.8 points. The race wasn't called that night. It wasn't called the next day. It slipped into a tense, ugly recount, a legal gray zone where every provisional ballot was a battlefield. The narrative she'd tried to cement in prime time was now shattered glass underfoot. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Her opponent's camp, previously deflated, was now electrically charged with the energy of the wronged. Their messaging shifted from concession to crusade. They tried to steal the narrative, now let's protect every single vote. It was a masterclass in turning a tactical blunder into a moral high ground. Crockett's team scrambled, moving from victory laps to damage control, issuing statements about celebrating the hard work of volunteers and respecting the ongoing process. But the smell of desperation was all over it. It was political gaslighting, and the audience wasn't buying it. You can't give a victory speech and then pretend you were just giving a pep talk. This is where we see the real power of narrative in modern politics. It's not just about shaping opinion, it's about creating momentum so powerful it can feel like an immutable fact. Crockett's camp didn't just think they were winning. They needed the perception of a decisive win to become reality. They needed to freeze the race in amber at its most favorable point, to make the late counted votes feel irrelevant like statistical noise. It was a gamble on the power of story over substance. And for a few hours, it worked. Headlines drafted, social media graphics prepped, the political obituaries for her opponent all but published. But the substance, those cold, hard, inconvenient votes, had the final say. The commentary sphere exploded. The right-wing media ecosystem had a field day, framing it as the ultimate Karen move of politics, demanding to speak to the election manager to declare herself the winner. The left-leaning analysts were caught in a brutal bind, forced to critique a Democrat's catastrophic error while trying to deflect the broader election integrity attacks it fueled. The real-time data journalists, the heroes of this mess, published thread after thread, their charts and graphs more dramatic than any speech. The POV from their desks was clear. The tools to see this coming existed. The decision to ignore them was a choice. So, what does this mean for future election coverage? Buckle up, because the playbook just got rewritten. First, the call is dead.